Sorry! I hope you're all having a good day today. It is the Easter weekend for me. I had an amazing reading day yesterday and I finally finished enough young adult books that I figured I could put them all together in a video, and that's what I want to talk about today. And I think I'm just going to go straight into it, and I'm going to start with this beautiful book, Out of Heart. And it's written by Irfan Master. It's shiny on the back too, and I don't know if you can see this, but this is a connect the dots drawing of what can only be a heart. I actually got introduced to this book quite a while ago when I went to an event at Waterstones, and this author was on a panel talking about diversity in contemporary British writing and about writing from specific perspectives and things like that. And I loved hearing him talk, and so when I was looking for a book to pick up for my trip yesterday, I grabbed this off my shelves. One of the reasons was that it was quite a short one because I wanted to see if I could read it in a day. And I did. I read this on the trip to a castle that I went to, which was called Arundel, I think. And I read it on the train there and the train back and then in the evening, so really quick read. And I think it's quite a special reading experience if you get to read a book in a day. Like, I think you get a very different relationship with it than when you read a book over a month, which I do very often. The book starts off with a boy called Adam who has just lost his granddad, and he's trying to come to terms with it. His family isn't really coming to terms with it yet. He has to go to the funeral and learn about the traditions around the funeral. And then one day this man called William shows up on their front step, and he explains that he received a donor heart and that the heart belonged to Adam's granddad. Obviously everyone's a little bit weirded out by it, and they slowly start developing this relationship. It's interesting as well that in this family, Adam's dad isn't in the picture. He left or was kicked out about 3 years ago, and there's more to that story as well. Yeah, you get to see a little bit of like Adam and how he's dealing with it, and then William incorporating in the family. It's mostly from Adam's point of view, but sometimes there will be a couple of pages where it slowly shifts into the point of view of one of the other characters. And what I think I liked most about this book is the tone and the atmosphere and the writing. I thought it was beautifully written. I think sometimes it could do with a little bit more clarification. One of the characters, for example, I thought was about like 25 years younger than the character actually ended up being, because I only found out on like page 150 something. I was like, oh, okay, totally different age than I thought. There's other moments where like certain things are kind of skipped over that I thought needed maybe a little bit more explanation, but in general I think the writing is really beautiful. It feels like a warm hug, even though there's lots of sadness in the book as well. Another thing that I loved as well is that there's these little drawings in the chapter openings. There's this one too, which is related to the sign language that is used by one of the characters in the book. Something really nice in the back that I wanted to show. I don't know if it's too much of a spoiler. I don't think it's not a spoiler for the story, but it has this like connect the dots drawing that's related to the story. There were different poems and phrases used throughout the books and different themes, and sometimes I can feel a bit heavy-handed, but I really liked it as a piece. It really reminded me of the style of Aristotle and Dante. In case you've read that, I feel like the characters felt a bit like that and the atmosphere felt like that. I didn't actually read what it says on the cover. Your heart is not red, your heart is the size of your clenched fists. A bigger heart is not a better heart. The Greeks believed the heart was the seat of the spirit. Yeah, so there's lots of facts about hearts in here as well. The next one is actually an ebook that I read on my phone. I still had the manuscript on my phone from when I worked at Hotkey Books, and we often got to read the books in advance when we were working on it. And this was one that I actually hadn't read yet, and it was called The Quietness. So I've always known that I like historical fiction, but I actually don't end up reading that much of it. I am not crazy about the sort of high fantasy historical fiction, and I'm not that interested in sort of the War of the Roses and the stuff based on kings and queens particularly. I like having a specific time frame and then just having a more sort of normal story set in that time frame, and I was really in the mood for something like that. The Quietness is the story of Queenie and Ellen. It is set in a Victorian setting. Queenie is part of a really poor family, has to beg for money a lot of the time. Her dad is drunk very often and disappears, and her mom has to find means to make money and take care of the kids. And then there's Ellen, who is kind of like isolated and lives in this very well-off family but doesn't have any freedom. These are things that obviously have been seen in stories lots before. It switches between the two characters chapter to chapter, and what happens is that Queenie at some point finds this job where she's taking care of babies, and this is all to do with baby farmers and that really dark sort of story based on a real life story and things that really happened. But these two characters somewhere in the middle meet each other and sort of get involved in each other's story. I quite like dark topics anyway, so this was a nice mix of something being really dark but really like quick to read and like quite an exciting plot line. Sometimes I thought it was like a little bit superficial and it moved like quite fast, but I loved reading it. And if you have any more YA historical recommendations like that, I'd love to hear about them. Reminded me a lot of Fingersmith, so if you've read that or seen the BBC adaptation and you liked it, then you might enjoy this book as well. And also, I don't want to tell you too much about Baby Farmers in case you don't know about it and it will spoil the book a little bit, but I'll put a link to a Wikipedia article in the description. The last book that I finally read is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. If you've been following my channel for quite a while, you might know that I've talked about pretty much all of John Green's books in the past. I really love his books. I have some of my personal favorites. I wrote my translation dissertation about The Fault in Our Stars. I've made many videos about The Fault in Our Stars actually. One about how to pronounce all the Dutch names in it. I still want to do a Fault in Our Stars tour of Amsterdam. I have footage for it and I've just never like properly gotten all my stuff together. But basically I started reading this when it came out, then put it down for a while and didn't get back to it for quite a few months, and then recently picked it up again and finally finished it. You've probably heard the pitch for this book, but I'll just do it again in case you haven't. It's about Asa, who's a teenage girl, and her best friend Daisy, and when they hear about a fugitive billionaire and the price that is put on his head, and they realize that Asa actually knows the son of this billionaire, they decide to get in touch and go deep into this mystery. And then of course they quickly discover that this boy is a real person with real feelings and his dad is missing, so they can't just go chasing after this money. But the other side of the story as well is that Asa struggles a lot with thought spirals and OCD, and you really get like a close-up inside look on what that is like and how her thoughts kind of work and how she's struggling with it and how she's going to therapy. So I thought in a way this book was partly quite an uncomfortable read because some of the things that are being described are often not very pleasant to read about. So there were certain times where I sort of had to put it down for a bit and take a little breather because it basically feels like quite claustrophobic, and you get such a good idea of the thought spirals that, yeah, that can feel a bit claustrophobic. But at the same time, there's also lots of things that you would expect from a John Green book, which is like beautiful quotes, really funny scenes, like interesting characters, funny habits that they have, and then lots of friendship moments, whether it's like good ones or sometimes bad ones. The one thing I wasn't as fond of were one of the characters does these sort of online journal entries, which are quotes and then commentary. That is something that I usually don't enjoy reading as much about in a book. But then the rest of the book, like the other writing itself, I thought had so many like lovely paragraphs to read, and I want to have a look and see which quotes people have put on GoodReads. I also think with any John Green book that I've read, every time I've read it, I sort of enjoy it more. So I reread books quite a lot actually, and a lot of John's books because they've come out like quite a bit ago. I've read plenty of times, and I really look forward to rereading this one as well. The other thing about this book is that once you get to know so much about an author, like you listen to his podcast, you watch his videos, I find the reading experience of that really funny. Like you get to see certain things that they talk about a lot or things that interest them, and you get to pick up on that in the book, which very often when I read a book by an author, I won't really know anything about them. I'm curious if you read this book. I'd love to hear if you like follow John Green online or if you don't, and if somehow that made you like pick up on different things in this book. Okay, I think that is it for the books so far. I wanted to also bring up something that I thought was quite interesting, and that recently I've been reading quite a few YA books that I've either finished but really didn't enjoy, or I sort of gotten halfway through and have then abandoned. And very often I will go on GoodReads and read some of the reviews. Sometimes when I'm halfway through, I find it helpful to sort of see what people on GoodReads think. And if I'm already not enjoying it and then a lot of the reviews are very negative, sometimes I will abandon it from there. But I have found that I very often don't agree with a lot of reviews on GoodReads. So some of the books that have the highest ratings and are getting loads of 5-star reviews, it could be one that I really struggle with and really don't enjoy. And then there's ones where I go look at the reviews and I'm like, oh, star ratings, like okay, but not that great, and there's a lot of like 3-star reviews, and I actually end up absolutely loving it. So also would love to hear what you think about that and if that happens to you quite a lot. Alright, that is it for me. I'll put links to all of these books in the description as always. If you want to keep up with what I'm reading and be like a little bit ahead of the curve, because very often I don't like talk about books and videos until I've collected a couple together. So if you want to know what I'm reading right now, you can go to goodreads.com/booksandquills or follow me on Instagram and Instagram stories because I talk a lot about books over there. And that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Doei!